Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Buckle up, because today we're diving into a story that's equal parts mind-blowing and terrifying. I stumbled across an article from Newsweek titled, "How did an honors student who says she can't read or write get into college?" And let me tell you, this is a wild ride. My name is Sirius, and this is Unfluenced. The entire public education system just became worthless. Here we go. This is the kind of story that makes you question everything you thought you knew about education, merit, and the future of our society. So grab a drink, settle in, let's unpack this insanity together. By the end, I am going to paint a picture of the dystopian nightmare that we're hurtling towards if we don't course correct fast. The article centers on Aleysha Ortiz, a young woman from Hartford, Connecticut, who graduated high school with honors. Yes, honors, and even got accepted into a prestigious college, the University of Connecticut. Sounds like the American dream, right? Except for one tiny jaw-dropping detail. Aleysha Ortiz can't read or write. Let that sink in. 12 years in one of America's public school systems, a diploma in hand, and she can't read or do basic math. How does this happen? And what does it mean for the rest of us? Let's get into some details. When I was growing up, Connecticut was the gold standard for education. We're talking top-tier schools, the kind of place where a high school diploma meant something. You graduated and doors opened, maybe to Yale, Wesleyan, Trinity, or UConn. A diploma was a badge of honor. It was proof that you'd mastered the basics of reading, writing, math, maybe a little civics or some geography perhaps. It was a ticket to opportunity, a foundation for a brighter future. But something has gone terribly wrong. Aleysha Ortiz spent 12 years in Hartford's public school system, supposedly some of the finest in the country, and walked away with a diploma that says she is a cut above the rest, an honors graduate no less. Yet she can't read a sentence or solve basic math problems. Her diploma? It's a piece of paper with zero value. Worse, it's a lie. It's a betrayal of everything education is supposed to stand for. Let's be real. If you can graduate high school without knowing how to read, what's the point of those 12 years? You've been robbed of time, potential, and the skills you need to survive in the world. Now, back in the 80s, when I got my diploma, it meant something. It was a symbol of hard work, of late night studying, of actually learning something. Today, a high school diploma might as well be a participation trophy. It's worthless. It's worthless if it doesn't come with the skills to back it up. And what's worse, Aleysha's story isn't unique. Across the country, kids are slipping through the cracks, graduating without the ability to read, write, or calculate. It happens all the time. Now, I saw it myself when I used to run restaurants a couple years back. All right, I had a young employee. He's a great kid. He was eager to work, but when I handed him a Sharpie and asked him to label a container, you have to label and date food in restaurants. So, for example, pork chops, January 5th. He froze. He couldn't do it. It wasn't that he couldn't spell. He didn't know how to hold a pen. See, he'd grown up on tablets and phones, and he never learned the basic motor skills of how to write. It's not just a failure of education. It's a failure of society. But wait, it gets crazier. Aleysha didn't just graduate high school. She got into college. And not just any college, but UConn. UConn is one of Connecticut's crown jewels. How? Well, she used text-to-speech software to fill out her application and slipped through what I can only call the loophole system. See, some colleges, in their quest to meet diversity quotas, have adopted holistic admissions processes. Translation, they don't require SAT scores or any other standardized tests that measure, actual knowledge. Now, don't get me wrong. Everyone should get a fair chance at going to college. But when you lower the bar so far that someone who can't read can get into a prestigious university, you're not just cheating the student, you're cheating everyone. You're devaluing degrees for those who work their butts off to earn them. You're telling the world that a college education, like a high school diploma, is just another worthless piece of paper. The SAT test, for all its flaws, was designed to level the playing field. It's a standardized way to measure whether you can read, comprehend, and solve problems. Okay, I get it, it's not perfect, but it's something. When colleges ditch it in favor of holistic metrics, they're opening the door to stories just like Aleysha's. And let's be honest, if you can't read, how on earth are you supposed to succeed in college? How do you write essays, analyze texts, or even navigate a syllabus? The system is setting these kids up to fail while patting itself on the back for being inclusive. This isn't just about one student or one school. It's a symptom of a much bigger problem. We are raising a generation that's losing basic skills, not just reading and writing, but fine motor skills, critical thinking, and practical know-how. Now, back when I was managing restaurants, I saw it firsthand. That kid who couldn't write pork chops wasn't an outlier. I had others who struggled with basic tasks because they never learned to use their hands. They'd grown up swiping on screens. They never learned how to build, craft, or write. Now think about it. 100 years ago, people did everything with their hands. They built houses, they sewed clothing, they repaired tools. As technology evolved, we shifted to keyboards and touchscreens. Now with voice commands and AI assistants, we're on the verge of losing even those skills. Kids today are growing up in a world where they don't need to write, type, or even think too hard. They just ask Siri or Alexa. Now, this is already having real-world consequences. Medical schools are reporting that new surgeons are struggling with fine dexterity. Why? Well, because they never learned to use their hands the way previous generations did. They didn't grow up drawing, writing, or tinkering. They grew up on devices. And when you can't hold a scalpel with precision, that's not just a personal failure, it's a societal one. We're talking about lives on the line. Now, where does all this lead? Let's talk about the worst case scenario, a dystopian future where this trend spirals out of control. Imagine a world where an entire generation graduates without knowing how to read, write, or think critically. Oh yeah, they've got diplomas, degrees, and fancy titles, but they're empty credentials. They can't analyze a news article, they can't balance a budget, they can't question what they're told. They are completely dependent on technology to function. In this dystopian world, critical thinking is extinct. People will believe whatever the internet tells them because they can't read primary sources like the Constitution or the Bill of Rights. They don't understand how government works, so they can't hold it accountable. This is where the real danger lies. When a population can't think for itself, it becomes putty in the hands of those few that have real power. Now, governments, corporations, or whoever controls the algorithms can shape narratives without resistance. That's not just a slippery slope, it's a cliff. George Orwell warned us about this in 1984. A society that can't read, can't think, and can't question is a society ripe for control. When people lose the ability to engage with ideas, they lose the ability to fight for their freedom. And don't think this is far-fetched. We're already seeing the seeds of it. Social media algorithms feed us curated information. And if you can't read or think critically, you're at their mercy. You'll believe the headlines, the sound bites, the propaganda, because you can't dig deeper. And let's talk about the economy. If we're churning out graduates who can't read, write, or solve problems, who's going to run our businesses, hospitals, infrastructure? We're already seeing shortages of skilled workers in fields like engineering, medicine, and trades. In this dystopian future, it gets even worse. Imagine a world where bridges collapse because engineers can't calculate loads, where surgeries fail because doctors lack dexterity. And when laws are written by people who can't read them, this is just chaos waiting to happen. Now, I'm not one for conspiracy theories. Yes, I am. But you have to wonder, is there an agenda here? Why are schools graduating kids who can't read? Why are colleges admitting students who aren't prepared? Is it just incompetence, or is it something bigger at play? When you create a system that rewards credentials over skills, you're not just failing students, you're shaping a society that's easier to control. Now think about it. If people can't read the Constitution, they can't challenge laws that erode their rights. If they can't do math, they can't question budgets or economic policies. If they can't think critically, they'll swallow whatever narrative is fed to them. I'm not saying there's a shadowy cabal orchestrating this, but the outcome would be the same. A population that's functionally illiterate and dependent on technology is a population that's vulnerable. And technology itself is a double-edged sword. Tools like text-to-speech and AI assistants can be lifesavers for some, but they're also crutches. If we lean on them too heavily, we risk losing the ability to function without them. Imagine a future where a power outage or a cyber attack leaves us helpless because we've forgotten how to write, calculate, or even think without a device. That's not science fiction, that's a real possibility. So here we are, we're staring down the barrel of a dystopian future. It's right in front of us. In the worst case scenario, we're looking at a world where education is a sham, where diplomas and degrees are meaningless, and where an entire generation is functionally illiterate, unskilled, and unable to think for themselves. They'll be at the mercy of whoever controls the technology. You don't like who's in charge now? Might be different in 4 years. Doesn't matter. The information, the power, everything will be out of their control. This is a world where freedom erodes. It's not because of some dramatic coup, but because people will no longer have the tools to defend it. We're not there yet, but we're on the path. Aleysha Ortiz's story is a warning, a wake-up call. We can't keep pretending that handing out diplomas to kids that can't read is progress. We can't keep lowering standards in the name of inclusion without ensuring that everyone has the skills to succeed. And we can't keep outsourcing our brains to technology without losing something fundamental. So what do? Well, first, we kind of need to demand some accountability from our schools. If a kid can graduate without basic skills, that is not a success story. It's a scandal. Second, we rethink college admissions. Holistic processes are fine, I guess, but they can't replace measurable standards like the SAT tests. Third, we need to teach kids practical skills, writing, building, problem solving, not just how to swipe on a screen. And finally, we need to encourage critical thinking. Teach kids to question, how to read primary sources, to think for themselves. If we don't act, the future looks grim. A generation that can't read, write, or think is a generation that can't innovate, can't lead, and can't resist. We'll end up in a world where ignorance is weaponized, where power concentrates in the hands of the few, and where freedom is just a distant memory. It's not a future I want for my kids or yours. This story about Aleysha Ortiz, it kind of hit me hard. It's a real wake-up call, and I hope it hits you too. Let me know what you think in the comments. Have you seen this kind of thing in your schools or workplaces? How do we fix this mess? All right, if you made it this far, hit that like button if you're as fired up as I am. Subscribe if you want to. Let's keep this conversation going. There's plenty of room down there in the comments. All right, I got more stories coming, so I'll see you soon.